I bought this bike almost 2 years ago, I think it is, and it didn't look like this at all. It was stock, had the stock frame, everything in the motor was stock. But anyway, I went into the local bike shop, which is not too far from my house, and I went in there looking for a back tire for my Softail, and ended up leaving with this motorcycle here. Well, again, not exactly this motorcycle, but anyhow, I left with a Sportster rather than a back tire. And I rode around with it. I played with it a little bit, and noticed I had a little trouble shifting. And when I tore the transmission out to find the problem, I found the problem, but I found more than just the problem. I found that the engine cases were no good. So what was originally swapping out of engine cases turned out to be a chopper project. Had the engine out of the motorcycle and tore the engine completely apart, and I thought to myself, well, you know, now is the time, if I ever want to build a bike for the first time or at all, that now's the time. So I pulled out the cutting wheel, cut the frame in half. As you can see right back there, let me get my finger there, right here you can see the weld. I cut it right behind the motor mount, the top motor mount. And if I can get down here on the bottom, right here where you can see the welds, where I cut it right there. The tailpiece came from TC Bros choppers. You can check them out at tcbros.com, and they have a lot of good stuff for chopper builds. A lot of good stuff, mostly for Sportsters and other odd Jap bike type stuff. But anyway, the engine itself originally was all 1990. As it sits now, the engine cases are 1986, while the bottom end and the heads are 1990. The cams are 1990. The jugs and the pistons are 2002. The transmission, being it's a 4-speed transmission, this thing, the gear ratio was very tight, and at 55 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, the RPMs would be screaming right around about 4,000 RPMs. Well, that's more like at 70 miles an hour. So I changed the gear ratio, put an older clutch gear in it, and a countershaft drive gear, and that changed the entire gear ratio inside the transmission. And I put a 22 tooth chain drive sprocket up front, and a 48 tooth sprocket on the wheel, which now I can do 65, 70 pretty comfortably. 75 probably pushing it. After all, it is a 4-speed. You'll never win a drag race with this motorcycle, but however, you will be able to keep up with traffic on the interstate at times, you know, and to reasonably travel on your state highways and stuff like that, which is originally what I was going to do with it anyway, because the interstates aren't much fun. This is actually my original fender that came on the bike. I was going to get a different fender. I got to thinking to myself, instead of shopping around for a different fender, well, I wouldn't have anything to lose if I were to try this fender, and needless to say, it did not originally look like this. Made my lines with a scribe on the steel on the sides, you know, and did my grinding, you know, on the corners to round them off real good. You know, it's not perfect because I'm not an artist. I'm not a metal fabricator by trade. But anyway, the seat here, I had a store-bought seat that I put on here. I'm not going to say where they came from because I don't want to hurt their business. But anyway, I had a store-bought seat that I put on here, and it was the kind of seat, you know, it had the it went with the lines of the frame like this one, but the back part didn't come up like this. It just followed the fender, which was killing my tailbone, you know, wah. But I guess you can expect that when you're riding rigid frames. However, I wasn't going to give up on wanting to ride more than 50 miles at a time without a sore butt. or with sore tailbone. So I made this seat right here. I went down to Lowe's and I bought some 3/16 sheet metal, did some cutting with a cutting wheel, and I made the pan, welded the pan together, cut the foam, put some gel padding in here and in here. Being that I suck at stitching, I went ahead and got a professional to do the covering for me because I just suck at using the sewing machine. I can't do it. And it's okay. You know, I'm more satisfied with how it feels than how it looks. I didn't really foresee them making a two-piece cover. I wasn't very specific. I thought they knew what I was looking for, but I'm not going to fuss for the price because I knew the guy's brother, so he gave me a good deal. I don't believe this is going to be the ultimate seat for this motorcycle. I've been searching online for you know, different seats for this kind of a setup, and Lepera makes a seat for this kind of setup, and I've been watching the reviews on it. I can ride a lot further on this seat than I can the first seat, but after a while, you know, it just, you know, maybe I just haven't learned my lesson with a rigid frame yet. But nevertheless, I'm not giving up hope. The taillight and license plate assembly, it initially did not, it was not made to mount on the Sissy bar. In fact, it had a different shape to it. Excuse me, let me get the helmet out of the way. It had a different shape to it. You know, this piece here had more of an angle, you know, had more, almost at like a 60-degree angle or a 30-degree, whatever degree. And it was supposed to mount on the side of the where the axle is basically held on by this nut. And I ran it there for a little while just to get the thing going. And then after a while, I wanted a new Sissy bar, a different Sissy bar, because the first Sissy bar I bought for this bike wasn't this tall. You know, it was a lot shorter. And when I was buying it, I thought it was taller than what it was, but that was my fault for not digging any deeper into the dimensions. But nevertheless, when I got this Sissy bar, I went ahead and cut me a piece of flat bar here, and I welded it on here, and drilled some holes, and took the taillight assembly and put it on a piece of wood, and I smacked it with a hammer, just to start flattening it out so it would stand straight up. As you can see the lines right here where the original bend was, and well, the paint's broken because of the beating it took from the hammer. It bent and broke the paint. You know, there's a little bit of rust there. But that's the setup I originally wanted, and I think I like it better that way. This wheel right here, this back wheel, maybe some of you guys who have been riding a whole lot longer than me, I'm really on the fence as to where this wheel came from, what genre, what era. The reason I say that is I initially thought it was a Fat Boy back wheel, and I'm pretty sure it is. I guess, I don't know. But the reason why I'm not very sure is because I needed a new brake disc for this wheel, and it uses these bolts that have the tapered head on it, and the bolt hole is countersunk. It doesn't have the counter bore for a 3/8 bolt. It's a countersunk hole for a 7/16 bolt. And I just immediately assumed that any old 1990s, late 80s Evo Fat Boy, you know, I could find the right brake disc. But every brake disc I found for a Fat Boy had the counterboard bolt hole for a 3/8 bolt. But however, you know, it wasn't going to work on this hub. I don't know why. So I didn't know what to do. So just for the heck of it, I started typing in shovel head, brake disc, whatever. And sure enough, a bunch of these came up, which is exactly what I was looking for, with the right size hole using a 7/16 bolt. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe some of you old schoolers, you know, I'm not old school yet. I haven't been riding it long enough. I'm almost to the 20-year mark, but you know, I'm not in the same class as some. But maybe some of you guys can tell me something about that. I don't understand. But nevertheless, it runs. It's fine. If you're thinking of relocating your coil on your Sporty, you don't, even if you're not doing this kind of thing, making a chopper, if you want it right there, instead of like right here where it originally was, which eventually I'm gonna grind this off or cut it off and weld it up, you know, so it just won't be there. That's where originally where the coil would mount. It would sit right under here, and that's what this big open, why there's a big open gap there, because typically the coil would take up a lot of that space. Well, I wanted it over here. Well, I decided that I wanted to put it here, and I started looking on the internet and on eBay and other sites for a coil relocation kit where I can put it right here. And I thought the prices were just completely outrageous. I mean, totally stupid. You know, like for example, they want like 85, 100 bucks, maybe more for a coil relocation kit. And I said, the heck with that. So I decided I'm going to come up with my own way of doing it. And for 63 cents, I was able to relocate my coil. And the 63 cents was spent on these longer 7/16 bolts right here. You know, and you're probably wondering what this is. This is my high beam, low beam that I rigged up. Man, it's really not working out too good because the switch, I found it in my garage. You know, and it was kind of wore out. So I'm going to have to replace that. I didn't like the forward controls. I've got the mid controls that I set up. You know, the shifter here, the you know, the brake right there. The reason why I did that, you know, some people want to look cool with their feet stuck way out like they're on a gynecologist table or whatever, I don't know. But I did this for, number one, if I want to put my feet out and be comfortable going down the highway, and if there's not too many cars around, I can do it. But at the same time, no matter where I put my feet, I can always control the bike no matter where my feet are at. Like if my foot's here, I can shift with my toe. If my foot's here, I can shift with the back of my heel, no matter what. But you know, I like to have my feet wherever I want them, whenever I want them, and still be able to control the motorcycle. Especially if you're on a hardtail, you want your feet right here most of the time anyway. So if you have to stand up on a bump, you know, or at a bump, you don't hurt yourself. Because you know, the roads can be pretty unmerciful, especially if you can't read the roads. But these foot pegs are not original Sportster foot pegs, and I don't know if it was sacrilege for me to do this or not, but I found these foot pegs, the original foot pegs, off of a 1948 panhead. They're the big fat kind. I love these kind. I don't know why. It's just my cup of tea. You know, I got one on the other side. Even got the Harley Davidson logo on there. Even though Harley Davidson sucks now these days, you guys might like the new 2018s. I hate them. As far as I'm concerned, Harley Davidson hasn't come out with a new bike since 2017. Why pay so much for a Jap bike lookalike when you can buy a Honda for half that price? But anyway, you might like them. I don't. You know, not my cup of tea. But that's another subject. The subject here is this motorcycle here. The front wheel is a 21-inch front wheel, regular 40-spoke wheel for a Narrow-Glide. I have no idea what it originally came off of. I got it offline from a guy on eBay who was just selling it cheap. It's in great shape. Only thing I had to do was just put a tire and tube on it. The tubes are 6/over tubes. Actually, they're not 6/over. They're set at to be 6/over right now. Right now they're 8/over tubes, but I have the spacer set in such a way where they're sitting 2 inches lower. I mean, I can set it to 8/over, but not without it looking like it's ready to blast off to the moon. It already sits up at enough of an angle right now, which you can't really tell too good because it's sitting on a kickstand. But I haven't decided if I want to go with 7 degrees raked bearing cups or whatever you call them. Right now they got the 3-degree rake on them, 3-degree extra rake than stock. But I really don't believe that 7 degrees or even 5 or whatever degrees kit is going to do the job as far as having 8/over fork tubes, because I think it's really going to set that frame a little more of an angle than I would have wanted. So, but I may do that anyway, or I may go with the route of having it raked, you know, by a fabricator. I've done my own welding on some of this frame, but stuff like this structural stuff I don't trust myself to do because I'm not a real fabricator and I don't have the right equipment to do it with. But I do know some folks that can do it, and they would be willing to do it. just a matter of what do I want to do. The handlebars, I tried, let's see, 3 different sets of handlebars. This is the 3rd set. I like these bars the best. I think they look good for what I got here, and on top of that, believe it or not, they work good for me actually, for my posture. They actually cause me to sit in such a way that it's good for my back. Again, it looks great with the bike. It goes with the lines of the front end. I love it. I've looked at other kits online as far as a battery box for a motorcycle, and they always want 50 to 100 bucks, and I said piss on that, the heck with that. I decided to go buy the battery that I'm going to use, and I went to Lowe's and I bought some angle, which is what the box is made of. I cut my angle, the sections I wanted, and I kept them together and I welded them together. I even drilled little holes along the side if I ever have an acid leak or whatever, so I can drain. I welded some nuts on the side, and I got a jam nut here so that I can keep the bolt in place where it won't back off, and at the same time not have really any tension or any pressure on the battery. So that works out pretty good. This bike probably has about 5,000 to 6,000 miles on it now since it's been built. That's why it looks dirty. I didn't really build it for looks. I built it for me, for style. I mean, it's my style. You know, most people wouldn't dig it. You probably think it sucks. That's okay. I'm not trying to please you. You know, some people would even ask, why'd you build a Sportster? I said, well, you know, a Sportster because screw you. That's why. And being a 4-speed Evo, some people might say, why didn't you do something classic? You know, like, why not an iron head? Something like that. And I say, well, it's not an iron head, it's an Evo, simply because it's on your little hipster movement that's going on. You know? But that's probably not a nice thing to say, but that's how I feel about it. I've never been one to go with the flow. Anyway, hope you guys have a good day, and tell me what you think about this motorcycle or the work, or how you could have done it better. Please save the smart comments, but I'm sure they'll come anyway. You know, those with no brains at all or any intelligence will do that. Any of you guys have been doing this a whole lot longer than me, you know, I would appreciate your insight. If you think it sucks, that's fine. You can tell me so. If you think it's cool, that's cool too. I don't care. But anyway, have a good day.